Welcome back into the Vandy Sports Podcast alongside Luke Wyatt. I'm Billy Derrick. We'll have Chris Lee coming in here shortly. It's a bye-week podcast, no game to get into or preview this week, but we'll be talking all about last week's loss to South Carolina, 28-7, maybe a little basketball as well. This week's episode brought to you by the Wash House, a Murfreesboro Pure Milk Company, Sutherland and Belk, John Levin and his company, Wobble Bond Dickinson, also Yeaman Packaging Systems. I will let Chris do the honors on all the ad reads there. But Luke, Vanderbilt suffered a loss that they hadn't suffered yet this year. They lost by more than just one score, and they had only lost 3 other times before the South Carolina game. But after watching that, was it a combination of just a lot of factors for you, or what things did kind of pop up into your mind after that loss to South Carolina?
Well, first of all, I want to give South Carolina a ton of credit. I think their defense is for real, as we know, and they played that way, played well. But I said, if you remember a couple of weeks ago before we went to Auburn, I was really concerned about I wanted that to be our off week because that was our 5th game in a row without an off week, and this was our 6th. And I'm not making an excuse for that, but I do think that played a huge factor. We were a very beat-up team. We looked a step slow. The tackling looked like that you had a bunch of kids who weren't physically into it. I know Clark is not going to agree with none of that because there's no excuses for that stuff. But I felt like in the second half that we were really a tired bunch. We looked like that, we weren't there. The big play where we missed the sack down at the 1-yard line, and then they make that big play. After that, he talked about the team retreating from the fight. I'm not so sure it was that as much as it was timeout, we need a break. And I know it's not, again, I'm not making an excuse, but that's just the way I saw it from my seat in the bridge. They looked a step slow to me. Give South Carolina credit, but we had seen the week before signs of it where we were getting beat up and, we had several guys out. And this time of year, when you play 6 games in a row, and I'm not certain of this, Billy, and you may know more than I do about this, but I think us and one other team are the only 2 in the SEC that had to play 6 games in a row. Now, I don't know if that's the SEC's fault or if it's our own fault the way we scheduled the games.
No, I think you're right in that, and I told this to Joey after the game. Like, it felt like it was a combination of a lot of different things. Number one, like you just said, Luke, 6 straight weeks. That's tough no matter who Vanderbilt had to play this week. I think it was a lot about Vanderbilt and their tired legs and just simply running out of gas, as it was South Carolina being a very good, dominant football team. Like South Carolina, without their bogus calls there at the end of the LSU game, they're probably a 2-loss team here, on the verge of making a playoff. But so I don't want people to get bogged down by that too, Luke,
right.
Yeah, it was, South Carolina's a really good team, but everybody was talking about how good of a team Vanderbilt was up until this point. And look at Georgia over the weekend. I mean, they lose 28-10 and look very pedestrian against that Ole Miss team. I think more so this season, Luke, you just don't know. You have no idea what to expect week in, week out, which is exactly why Vanderbilt can go to Baton Rouge and beat LSU.
Absolutely. And, Billy, you have to look. I mean, every game stands on its own, but I look at this season, like, for instance, it's not only who you play, it's when you play them. If we'd have played South Carolina in game 1 of these 6, I think you'd seen a ton better showing and possibly a Vanderbilt win. But when you're playing them on the back end of 6, and they had just had a week off 2 weeks ago and coming off an emotional great win at home and blowing out Texas A&M, who at the time had not lost a conference game. So it's when you play teams has a whole lot to do with it. I love the fact that we have an off week. Hopefully we can get some guys well. I still haven't heard. I've talked to Clark about his birthday, but we didn't talk about football. And I don't know the latest update on Diego or some of the other guys who are banged up. But I'm interested to see whenever you guys meet with Clark again, just how healthy we are.
Yeah, there wasn't an update, I guess, as of Monday on Diego, and obviously the next injury report won't be until next week. Availability report is what they're calling it. But Luke, I want to get your take on Diego Pavia. Really off the field right now. I mean, he's got a lawsuit going on, and of course, the temporary restraining order was denied by the NCAA. What are you hearing? I don't know if you've tried to snoop around very much on that, but what are you hearing on that? Because all of a sudden, that's a big story, and coming down the stretch here, there's going to be a lot of things to watch down the stretch of this season, but also in the off season for Vanderbilt.
Well, the first thing you think of, okay, is this a distraction? I know Clark was aware of it. Of course, Vanderbilt has no involvement in this. It's just strictly Diego and his lawyers. I don't blame the kid, for trying. I hope it works, obviously, for selfish reasons. And for him, the kid's busted his rear end to get to where he is. So I don't have no fault with it. I know the timing of it's not great. You had this pop up during the week in preparation for South Carolina. Do I think it has anything to do with how we played or how we look? No, I don't. And especially now that you have a week off, I really don't think it's a distraction moving forward.
Well, it'll be interesting. Obviously, right now where this team stands, Luke, you got about almost 2 weeks here before LSU. How do you feel about this team as opposed to how you felt about them a few weeks ago? Like, are you the type of person that hasn't changed much on this team? They can still go out and beat one of these final two teams and maybe go 2-0 here and finish strong, or have you kind of waned on how you feel about where this team's at? Because like you said earlier, that they're banged up, they're battered, they're bruised, but everybody is, this time of year as well.
It is, but and you're right about everybody being banged up. But Vanderbilt's depth has always been not quite as good as some of the others. A banged up Texas team is in still better shape than a banged up Vanderbilt team. So I'll defend that a little bit. But I will say this: I think at the beginning of the season we talked about this. Would we be happy if we were 6-4 right now? I think everybody would have been. The thing is, you always want more. I think we have a shot at LSU, especially depending on how they do this weekend against Florida. Losing last week to Alabama, I think, helps us because I think their interest level, they pretty much are out of the picture for a playoff, I think. So that can't hurt us. I think Nussmeier is a really good passer, but he stays in the pocket. He's not a running quarterback. So that helps us. We have a shot. It depends on how healthy we can get in these next 10 or 11 days. As to whether we can beat LSU and Tennessee moving forward. The health issue is the biggest concern for me at this point of the year.
I got one more, and then we'll get into a little basketball, and then we do have to get Chris in here. Eventually, he'll be hopping back in here, so we'll bring him in. But the offense, I'm not worried about the defense. I don't think you are either, Luke, and I think most fans at this point have looked at the defense and been able to accept that, at this point they can keep them in games. And we didn't really think that at the beginning of the season. They've made those adjustments. Offense is going to have to make some adjustments. But what's out there, Luke? I mean, what's out there that you're seeing with this offense that, and I know we got some questions about this, but what are you seeing that this offense could tap into?
Well, I think, as any other, as things go, I think our defense has got better throughout the year. And we have caught up to some of the offenses of how to defend them. I think the same thing has happened to us. A lot of people have figured out keep Diego in the pocket. Don't let him get to the perimeter to beat you where he can create. And that's kind of been the situation. Even go back to Kentucky, the Auburn game, and this game. They've limited what he can do creative-wise. Diego's still got a ton of heart, and he's a tough kid. The one drive we had when we went right down the field in a minute and a half or something, it shows that it's still there. But you've got to have guys make plays outside of Stowers, and then the great catch by Seti. You got to have a couple more guys step up. I'm not blaming Cole Spence for his inactivity of catching the football. He's really done a great job blocking within the scheme of the offense. But I thought we would see more from Cole Spence catching the football. Now, whether that's on Cole or whether that's on Tim Beck and Jerry Kill or whether it's on Diego not looking for him, I'm not certain of that. But I do think Cole Spence has a lot more meat on the bone to give us than what we've seen out of Cole.
Luke, let's get a little basketball in here. They got Cal tonight at home in a big game. for Mark Byington and company. 8.5-point favorite, I think, is what they're at right now. How big is that game tonight? But also, through 2 games, what have you noticed from the basketball team? I know it's not a huge sample size, and Byington mentioned after the game there the other night that you could put a sign in their locker room that they're a work in progress right now. But what have you noticed through 2 games, and what could this win against Cal do for them? Because Cal's a good team. They got a former staffer. They got Lee Dort over there coming over to play Vandy again tonight. So what intrigues you about that matchup, but also about what you've seen through a couple of weeks here with this team?
Well, this matchup will be a lot different than the first 2. You're playing a team that's got 4 guys that are 6'9" or bigger that play a lot of minutes. So we're going to see, our biggest worry when we talked about this team, I think most of us, was our size and our ability around the basket to guard bigs. I think we'll find that out tonight some. Secondly, I'm not concerned about everyone's kind of on the edge of their seat about the way we shot threes. That's not going to continue. It may continue tonight, but as far as as the season goes on and these guys get more comfortable with each other and figure out the combinations, he's right about the work in progress. What we got to do is not let a loss, not lose basketball games while we're doing this. You still got a kid that's going to wind up playing some in Hemingway, who's probably the best shooter on the team we haven't seen yet. Kajani Wright may get back in a couple of months. I'm not certain on that. That'll help us. I'm not sure the role J.Q. Roberts is going to play with this team. I was a little surprised he didn't get any run the other day. But the play of Devin McLaughlin and Carey have been great, especially Devin. I'm not really as concerned as I think a few people on the board may be. I just feel like it's just going to take a little time. And when it starts clicking, we're going to have a lot of fun watching this team.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. This Cal game, we'll be getting this out, and the game might be getting ready to tip off. But I know Cal is a good team. This will be a good test for them. But what I noticed so far, Luke, is they get up and down the floor. I mean, we talked about that, coming into the season. But man, the way they get up and down the floor, they have an identity on offense. They may not always be shooting it well, but there's a goal in mind. Where last year, years past, you didn't really feel that. Defense, obviously, probably a work in progress at this point, but it'd be really interesting to see with this Cal game. I think that'll be a good barometer of where this team is at. But we're going to go and hop into the mailbag. And again, when Chris comes in, I may have to dip as well, but Chris will get to a lot of the ad reads, and we'll get to the mailbag now, presented by Sutherland and Belk Injury Law Firm. If you're a loved one, is it an accident or got hurt recently, give Taylor or Russell a call at 615-846-6200 to see what your rights are and if they can help. All right, Luke, similar question to what I asked you earlier from Papa Forhick VU. What's your take on Pavia staying in the game when it's 28-7 midway through the fourth quarter and it was obvious Vandy was not going to win? Leave him in and risk injury when the outcome had been decided, or take him out in an attempt to avoid an injury? We know what happened. Just curious of what y'all's views are.
Well, I would have been fine with Clark's decision either way, but personally, as the head coach, I would not have taken him out on that next drive, because a 3-score game is really a 2-score game and an onside kick away. So, we scored in a minute and 11 seconds on that one drive. So if we'd have had a quick score in that drive where he came back in, I would probably left him in for the remainder of the game. Otherwise, taking him out. So I don't have a big problem with it. Yeah, it looked like he got maybe dinged up worse because he did stay in, but you can't worry about that. You got to play football, and you don't want to give up and throw in the white flag. And I don't think Diego wanted to come out either. So there you go.
Right. And hindsight's 2020, Luke. At that point, it was 28-7.
Yeah.
We saw this team could come back quickly. They did it against Georgia State. They did it against Texas late. What if they score a touchdown, make it 28-14, and then get a stop on defense and get another chance to score? All of a sudden, you're back in it. I think it did feel unlikely in that game, in that scenario. But Pavia has been banged up all season. I don't think I do think he'll be fine. I don't think this is probably not a week where he practices, but for Pavia, he's fought through bangs and bruises all season, so I didn't have too big of a deal on that. VA 72, what do you think Vanderbilt's future looks like, both short and long term, with the likely departure of Diego Pavia, who has been such a key to their success this year after this season? Is this limited success sustainable? And if so, to what degree?
Oh, I think it's very sustainable. Now, Diego Pavia deserves a ton of credit for jump starting this team and helping Clark and Coach Kill create the environment that they want for this football team. However, they have seen and they've reaped the benefits of winning, and they're going to get to go to a bowl no matter what happens in the last two. So I think you're going to have a lot of kids come back on this team that may have looked elsewhere. Let's say if we'd have gone 4-8 or 5-7, you may have had a few more departures. I think you'll have guys coming back. And I do think also that you'll have more NIL money to spend. I don't have any proof of that, but I just feel like, this is now our 7th bowl since the year 2008. And we look at that 7 bowls in 16 years. Vanderbilt only went to 3 the previous 100 years. So there has been improvement in Vanderbilt football. It just doesn't seem it because of the last 5 years we'd come through. But I feel really good about the future. I think Coach Kill and Coach Beck will be here for at least a couple more years, maybe longer. And we can continue to win football games. I will tell you this, though. The SEC did us no favors with our scheduling. Us and Florida having to play the same teams back-to-back 2 years in a row. I don't know whether they spit that out of a computer or what, or if it's just something they draw out of a hat. But we sure got the short end of the stick on this stuff. I know you have to play who you play, and it's different every year. But that part of it, if we'd have had a schedule of another team in our state, I think we might be sitting on 8 wins right now.
Exactly. I think we've got Mr. Chris Lee back here in the fold. Chris, you ready to roll?
Are you?
I'm ready to roll. It's been a morning here. We've got college football rankings to unpack, and the matter of Kentucky Duke at Southeastern 16. So that has been my morning. What have I missed?
There you go. Well, you missed a couple of mailbag questions. Here's what I'll do, Chris. I'll ask this next question, and then I'll have to hop out. I'll let you and Luke take over from there.
Love the background here, by the way, Billy.
Yes.
Yeah, I've switched it up a little bit.
YouTube. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, Go Doors 94. Was South Carolina, and this is a good question for you, Chris, was South Carolina the best defense we faced all year? I mean, you go back to that Texas defensive line. That was a stout unit, but man, that South Carolina defense, from what I saw in person, Chris, that certainly looked like the best defense, and it wasn't just their defensive line. I mean, the gaps and holes that used to be there in certain games for Vanderbilt just were not there against the Gamecocks.
I thought Texas would be the best defense they would face all year. And I don't know, maybe sometimes things are matchup specific. Maybe, Carolina's got a couple more games of tape on Diego Pavia in that offense than Texas had. But man, watching them, it felt like that was the best defense they have faced all year.
Yeah, I felt like the front seven.
Okay.
Yeah. Gosh, front seven was awesome.
Back end, we didn't get to test them as much as I wanted to. We did have a little success there, but yeah, their front seven was amazing.
All right, one more here. I'll let you guys take this one. I'll hop out of here. G-Barks 24. Can Tim Beck do anything to get the receivers involved more in short yardage situations before Vanderbilt is trailing in a game? It seems like teams are expecting Vandy to run the majority of the time, especially early in games. Luke, I'll let you take that one.
Well, I think we are what we are at the receiver position. You can move some things around, maybe give some other guys some run, but protection was such a problem the other night. I don't know how we completed anything. The times that he didn't get hit or chased out of the pocket, he was getting sacked, or as he was letting the ball go, getting hit. So you couldn't. I can't tell much from the other night, but I'm not sure there's a whole lot more meat on the bone that you can pull from those guys.
Yeah. I kept saying in the press box I was waiting for, the shovel pass to Stowers or something a little different to kind of get away from having to deal with the edges. Now, the problem is their middle of the defensive line was really good, and they were handling Vanderbilt without sending extra guys. So maybe I'm not a schematic guy. Maybe Carolina had done something to protect against that too, but I just felt like attacking the edges was just almost a fool's errand. And I don't know what. I mean, every time Diego dropped back, it was like a one Mississippi rush, Luke. I don't know what else he could have done.
No, they were coming through the A gap, through the B gap. It was just a wide open situation. And, here's the thing. Diego, later on in the game, when we had the big drive, they finally figured out when they were coming so hard up instead of holding the edge, he got a couple of big runs because of it. Yeah. I think recognized that earlier in the game. We may have stopped some of that, but we really didn't. Early in the game, we were just trying to hand the ball off and stay with our game plan, and it just wasn't working, man. It was like trying to hammer a nail in concrete. It didn't work real well. And I don't know, again, what else we can do receiver-wise. That's kind of the question. We are who we are right now at this point. Yeah. We're 10 games in.
Well, the other thing, and this has been a commonality, they have no explosiveness in the running game outside of Diego Pavia. I don't know that they've had more than 2 or 3 runs over 20 yards for running backs all season.
Right.
And it's something we saw in camp too. They're pretty good at getting 2 or 3 yards, but they do not appear to have a back who is capable of breaking a really long run. And some of that is going to require breaking tackles. That guy's just not on this roster that I see.
I agree. And I think Beck and Keel have done a great job of recognizing that the 2 kids can catch the football because they've done a good job receiving. Said he had a catch the other night. Newberry had the touchdown in a game or 2 ago. They've done a good job making up for some of their lack of speed by being involved in the passing game.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think they're kind of running up against the limits of what they are. Sure. I think that a week off to reset, maybe if you got a new play or something that you're getting, a lot of the complaints have been that their offense has been repetitive and too predictable. I don't know if that's fair or not. I think it feels like sometimes like some of the end around carries and some things like that maybe have been missing. Now, again, against South Carolina with their ends, that might have just been a recipe for disaster because those guys, sideline to sideline, is not how you beat South Carolina, I don't think. To me, that felt like a combination of a terrible matchup, and oh, by the way, this team has played 6 games in a row, which I think was a factor too.
Yeah, I'd mentioned before you got on, Chris, about that. I felt like, I was worried about it when we went to Auburn playing on our 5th week, and that I don't think anyone else in the SEC, there's maybe one other school that's had to play 6 in a row. And I don't know if that's Vanderbilt's fault or if the SEC caused that scheduling quirk. But, South Carolina had just been off 2 weeks ago, had played Texas A&M and blew them out at home. So they were riding the crest of a wave. And everything was kind of pointing to a loss the other night.
Yeah.
And, I think we ran out of gas.
I think that's one of those games, too. You play that earlier in the year. It's probably closer because Lenore Sellers was not playing this well with Rocket Sanders has kind of been hit and miss with his health. They caught them at a time where Sellers has figured some stuff out and Sanders looked healthy. And I mean, I don't think they were going to win that game if they played it in September. Based on what I saw, I think it was just a bad matchup. But, might it have been 21-17 instead, or maybe. I guess it doesn't matter, but that's part of it too.
Well, there were 2 defining moments when it was scoreless after the first quarter, and we get the fumble, and then we turn around and give it right back. I thought that was huge, and then the non-sack at the 1-yard line where they got the big chunk play.
Yeah,
that kind of set the tone for the rest of the game.
Am I overthinking this? It feels like they have sort of, and some of it's good defense. Because the last time they played a bad defense other than Ball State, I couldn't tell you. Everybody on the schedule defensively has been pretty good, even Auburn. But I don't know. I feel like Beck and those guys and Clark have done a really, really fantastic job of coaching this team up. Because when I see what elite looks like at certain positions, when I see an elite running back like Rocket Sanders, when I see an elite defensive line and front seven like theirs, and you hold them up against it, it was glaring where they fell short.
Sure. We have depended on three things all year. Number one, win time of possession by 8 to 10 minutes.
Yep.
Number two, win the penalty battle. Number three, win the turnover battle. And I'm not talking about being even. I'm talking about winning it. When we do those three things, we'll win. We will, no matter who we play. But when we fall short in any of those categories, and we fell short in two of them the other day, we had no sacks either. You're not going to beat a really good defensive football team like South Carolina.
Yeah, I think it just highlights the job they have done. That's not a shot against you. You can only do the best you can only do the best you can do with what you have.
Right.
And I feel like they have so far squeezed every bit of result out of this roster that they can. And now you're just like, all right, give me a week off, maybe give me a disinterested LSU team. And then you've got a rivalry game against Tennessee that they'll be up for and see how it goes. But I feel like they have taken this thing to this point as far as they can take it.
Well, Chris, excuse me. If we look back at the beginning of the season, and I think you guys predicted 4 wins, I had 6 at the most. I feel like if you'd have told me, knowing what we know now, that Zaylen Wood would only play in 2.5 games, if 2 of your top 3 corners would not play a snap, that you would not have much out of the running game as far as, like you said, explosive plays, that we could get to 6 wins after the first 10, I think none of us would have thought that.
No, yeah.
So I think we're right where we should be. And again, when you play teams has everything to do with it. I mentioned this a while ago to Billy. It's not who you play, it's when you play them a lot of times. If we'd have played LSU last week, we'd have probably had a tough result as well. But if they it'll be interesting to see how they play against Florida this week, because their chances of making the playoffs are slim and none, and Slim just left the building. Yeah. So how would they react? And they have a quarterback who, while he's a really good passer, he stays in the pocket for the most part. And that'll help us too.
Not to mention, you got a fan base that's really unhappy with Brian Kelly. I mean, that I think more than any fan base, like you lose one game at LSU, you're on the hot seat, it feels like.
Yeah. No, they're a lot like Alabama. You lose a game and the world's coming to an end.
Yeah.
And listen, I will say this, and I've been to every stadium in this league. That's the toughest place to play, period, on a night game.
Yeah.
But when you've got a disgruntled fan base, they'll turn on them so quick, and they'll help you.
Yeah.
Real. So I've even seen that when we almost beat them down there, and when Donardo was here, we lost 16-14.
Yeah. But
their fans were booing them in the fourth quarter then. So they're kind of like New York Yankee baseball fans. They expect you to win 162.
Well, it is a little sidebar here. I'm interested in their game with Florida because I think if Florida's got DJ Lagway, they can win that game. But I'm a little concerned because he's got a hamstring injury. They say he's got a shot to play, but you tell me, you knew the training staffs. Tell me the last time you heard of a hamstring, even if it was minor, that healed in a couple of weeks. When part of your job is running.
Yeah, no, you're correct, and that's the only reason you play at Lagway, because of his threat of running. It adds another dimension. If it's just a slight pull, sometime in that game he's going to have to put stress on it, and he'll pull it the rest of the way. That's usually what happens.
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting. And their third guy just is not the answer. I mean, unless they can just line up and run it 55 times. With success, and their defense is not good against the run, so there's that. But I think that's a very interesting game, because I think if they lose that, then Vandy's chances of going to LSU in 2 weeks and winning go up a good bit.
Yeah, I agree. I think even if it's a close game and they have to work hard to win it, I still like our chances because they know that they're not doing the best they're going to do is probably a Citrus Bowl or something like that.
Yeah. Where were you guys in the mailbag?
He had done 4 questions. So where
Okay.
fifth one would be, assuming he went in order.
Well, let's see. We had a question about Pavia not coming out. Did you hit that one?
Did?
Short and long-term future with Pavia's departure. You hit that one.
Yes.
The defense and short. Okay, I think he did go in order. So this one from Philip View94. What would be your take on a hypothetical coach expressing through words or actions that he considers it obvious his team isn't going to win with almost 8 minutes left in a 3-touchdown game?
We addressed that one too.
Okay, you did. All right. Midge VU, thoughts on the extracurricular stuff that's been happening now, several games versus Pavia. If there's a line to draw that with officials, where would that be? Does feel like he's taken a lot of hits.
I guess it's because I'm looking through black and gold glasses. I do think he takes more than he should. Part of it is he waits to the very, very millisecond to get rid of the football.
Yeah.
And it looks worse than it is probably. So I'll give the officials a break on most of that. Now, there was one the other night when he was on the ground and a guy came in and knocked his helmet off that could have easily been called unnecessary roughness, but they didn't call it. So,
Theodore 8, what are you hearing about the chances of Pavia getting an extra year of eligibility? I talked to his attorney last week. They were optimistic. I'm not a legal guy in this. I understand the stay yesterday was not, or the what were they looking for? The injunction, or I've lost the legal term. My mind is mush this morning.
TRO or something.
Yeah, that temporary restraining order. They didn't get that, which would have helped considerably. But I mean, it feels like they're going to get an answer. I don't know anymore. I mean, it feels like, honestly, at some point, this perpetual eligibility scenario for anybody and everybody's going to come to an end. But then again, the NCAA has not had a great track record in court.
I've got 6 or 8 friends that are attorneys, and I've asked every one of them, and I've gotten 4 different answers. So, the consensus is kind of that it won't be successful. But, we'll wait and see. I have no idea.
J2M, rate the following positions as far as importance next year: receiver, quarterback, offensive tackle, running back, defensive end.
Yes.
Yes. I like it. Well, I mean, look, it starts at quarterback, because if you don't get him back, you've got to find somebody. I'm not sure who that somebody is. My guess is they will try to find a guy who's been a starter somewhere else and make a strong offer, to paraphrase Will Wade. I think offensive tackle might be next. And I think running back is a need to me. Receiver, they're fine. They're not great, but they can get by with what they have. You'd love a guy to take the top off the defense. And defensive end, another one. I mean, it'd be great to have a guy on the edge that's got to be reckoned with. I mean, I think they're all important, but to me, it starts with quarterback.
Well, if Zaylen Wood's able to come back and he's healthy, and I don't know his status, if he does have another year, I guess he does. That would help in the pass rush. I think this at receiver, you can find talent coming out of high school that can play. That's the one position at wide receiver you can have a kid come in and make an impact. Getting another kid in the portal at receiver, sure. You're right about running back. We need an explosive back. We need a bell cow. We don't really have a bell cow. Now, Seti does a great job blocking, and in this offense, he is what they need. However, getting only 2 and 3 yards of carry, we need somebody who's going to average 4.5 to 5, and that's important to move this thing forward.
I wonder if they could make Newberry into a slot guy.
He can catch the football, so yeah. Why you couldn't?
And they don't seem to trust him running it between the tackles for very long.
No, and has the Cardenas kid, the freshman, been hurt?
I don't know, man. I didn't see him do anything in fall camp, so I don't know what the deal is there. Like, do you remember him getting carries at all?
No, not in camp. I was only at 4 practices, but I never saw him carry the football, so I don't know. It must be an injury situation, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
My favorite question in the mailbag. But by the way, but it's going to be a basketball question. Any loose ends to wrap up on football?
No, I think just hopefully they get well over I said earlier before you came on, Chris, and I'll reiterate it. We needed a week off before we played Auburn. I was afraid what happened Saturday was going to happen at Auburn. I really was.
Yeah.
We survived that one and did a great job defensively, but you could see it. You could see in that second half, once they got that chunk play where we didn't sack the guy at the goal line.
Yep.
Like Clark said, his team withdrew. I'm not sure if it was withdrawing. I'll kind of push back on Clark on that one. I feel like because of the poor tackling, that's when you're tired. When you're tired, man, you don't tackle well. You leave your feet, you take the wrong angle, and I just felt like this team needs time off. So that's pretty much where I see this team. How we heal over these next 8 to 10 days is going to say a whole lot of how the last 2 games go.
Yeah, that was so out of character in terms of effort and execution for them. I don't think that the want to is gone. Now maybe they need to figure out a way to push through some fatigue and stuff, but even Georgia's not Georgia deep anymore. But maybe that didn't help either. I'm rambling here, but it is what it is.
Let me give an analogy. I compare it to a boxer who's done a great job for the first 6, 7 rounds, and he's had bloody nose and been pulverized, and he finally that's it, man. He's got nothing left in the tank. And I think that's where we were in the 3rd to 4th quarter last week.
Yeah, felt like that to me too. I got some weird stuff with facilities these days. Is the indoor practice facility still on the table?
I haven't heard it. It's not. So I don't know.
I have not heard that talked about in forever.
I haven't nosed around about that at all. I usually wait on stuff like that. I wait till the season's over with.
Yeah.
Football, and then try to figure out some stuff. I have not heard that. No. Now I did hear that there's some back off. I know that's grammatically incorrect, but what I'm trying to say is some of the bells and whistles of things they're doing has been cut because, and I agree with this. Put that money more toward NIL, toward paying players. That's what I'm just going to call it that from now on.
Yeah,
the players played and all the athletes paid.
Yeah, I think there's some bigger questions there. I'll save them for later without having a little more solid info. But this is my favorite question in the mailbag, and this gives us an excuse to talk hoops for a minute. Go towards 94. For men's basketball, rate the following positions as far as importance for next year. Point guard, point guard, point guard, point guard, and point guard.
I'd say point guard.
I think you might be right.
No, it's funny when they introduced the starting lineups. I went to in Florida. They introduced them all as point guards. I thought that was interesting. So, yeah, and I know it's on the website like that. That tells me a lot of how this team's going to play. If that doesn't tell you anything as a fan, I think we're one of the top 35th in the nation in time of possession. So, we're going to get it up and down the floor and shoot it. On nights when we hit threes, we're going to run somebody out of the gym. Yeah. And on nights we don't, we're going to be lucky to survive, just like the other day against SEMO. We were 3 of 25, but we did workman on the boards. We didn't turn it over much. So there's things you can make up for when you're not shooting it well. And we did the other day. We survived that. But can't do that much in league play and survive it, I don't think.
Defense is going to be a problem.
I still think, Chris, and I'll push back on this, I think once they learn each other. The other day there was guys with heads on a swivel looking, do you get this guy? Do I get this guy? Yeah. Once they figure it out, I think our 3-point defense is going to be good because of the quickness. We have a bunch of guys that do the same thing.
Yep.
And they're interchangeable parts. So when we're substituting and everybody's got fresh legs, I think our defense will improve as we go along. I really do. And I think we'll guard the 3 really well by the time the season's over.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be interesting. I mean, McLaughlin has played out of his mind. I'm a big Jalen Carey guy. Jason Edwards has been a really nice get for them. Tyler Tanner has been great off the bench. I mean, he's leading the country in steals for freshmen.
Right.
I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah. Great.
I feel like they have a lot of options. I'm not entirely sure who the options are going to be. I think they got a lot of weaknesses. I could see them losing a game to the Citadel or Austin Peay or somebody like that, just because they don't shoot and they don't out-rebound somebody by 20. Free throws, well, I guess they hit better free throws last time. But I think they're going to be so hot and cold with the three. They may run somebody out of the gym that nobody's got them running out of the gym because of that. But I could see, I mean, heck, that SEMO game was a contested game in the last few minutes, and that shouldn't have been the case.
Chris, one thing we're going to find out tonight, our biggest worry in the offseason, where's the height? What are we going to do inside? Well, Cal has 4 guys that are 6'9" or bigger. So we're going to find that out tonight. We'll get a taste of that to see. I know Blackshear, I think they got a couple of good guards. And Blackshear, the transfer is really a good player. So they're still guard oriented, but they have plenty of big guys, including Lee Dort.
Yeah, I feel kind of bad for Lee Dort.
I
know that. Well, I mean, I know the incident, how he left, that looked bad, but there were some questions about that. It seemed, and I don't know what happened or what didn't, but it seemed out of character from what people told me. So who knows?
I wish him the best. That's
well, look, Adam Mazzari took him. Adam Mazzari's on staff at Cal. So,
and I really liked Adam. I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
I think he's a basketball coach too. Yeah,
Mazzari's the guy that everybody told me that's the one guy on his staff that knows what he's doing for sure. So, any parting thoughts here?
No, I'll be at the gym tonight. I don't know if you will be. I'm interested to see how we do against Cal. They're their bottom 4 team in the Pac or the ACC now. But there's 16, 18 teams in that league now. So it'll be a tough test tonight. This will definitely be the hardest game we've played so far.
All right. Well, thank you, Luke. Thank you, Billy, for jumping in when I wasn't here. Thank you to our sponsors. I don't know what got read or what didn't, but Wash House sponsors basketball season. We appreciate those guys. Murfreesboro Pure Milk Company, Sutherland and Belk, and I'm missing a couple off the top of my head. Yeaman Packaging Systems and John Levin. Those are our 5. Always looking for more. chrislee70@gmail.com if you're interested. For Luke Wyatt and Billy Derrick, I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching and listening to the Vandy Sports Podcast.